Oh, damn. All right, good day, everyone. I just want to make sure it does say recording there. And in this recording, we are going to talk about virtues. So, yep, I am recording, and welcome to class. So I'm going to go ahead and play this one by ear, and hopefully we learn something, and hopefully we take something from this. Right. So let's go ahead and get started with virtues. And I wanted to start us off with this little clip on virtues. I'm hoping that these movies aren't so outdated, and you understand the references. And the other thing is, I'm hoping you've seen the right screen here. Okay, so let's just go ahead and watch this real quick. It's an interesting take on virtues. This is from the movie Gladiator, and it's the scene where Marcus Aurelius tells his son that he will not be the emperor. And he talks about virtues. So go ahead and watch and enjoy.
Are you ready to do your duty for Rome?
Yes, Father.
You will not be emperor.
I'll see if I can turn up the volume.
Which wiser older man is to take my place?
My powers will pass to Maximus, to hold in trust until the Senate is ready to rule once more. Rome is to be a republic again.
Maximus.
My decision disappoints you?
You wrote to me once, listing the 4 chief virtues: wisdom, justice, fortitude, and temperance. As I read the list, I knew I had none of them. But I have other virtues, Father. Ambition. That can be a virtue when it drives us to excel. Resourcefulness, courage. Perhaps not on the battlefield, but there are many forms of courage. Devotion to my family, to you. But none of my virtues won your list. Even then, it was as if you didn't want me for your son.
Commodus, you go too far.
I searched the faces of the gods for ways to please you, to make you proud. One kind word, one full hug, where you pressed me to your chest and held me tight. Would have been like the song of my heart for 1,000 years. What is it in me you hate so much? All I've ever wanted was to live up to you. Caesar. Father.
Commodus? You are false as a son. Is my failure as a father? I would put to the whole world. Do you know you love me?
So hopefully that wasn't too gruesome, starting off our lecture on virtues. Very good movie, though. So let's get into the actual topic for today, which is looking at the 6 virtues and the 24 character strengths that sort of make up each one of those virtues. So, and after this, I'll show you a little clip from Dr. Martin Seligman and Dr. Christopher Peterson. So, excuse my voice, Seligman and Peterson, they led a team of about 55 social scientists, and they were examining the teachings of several traditions that classified moral components of human character. And they looked at things like, they looked at areas such as religion, philosophy, social sciences like psychology, in a place where morality was being defined. And the goal was to develop a common language in which to base future work on this subject. And so from this work, they developed the classification of virtues, and they narrowed it down to 24 character strengths. And so these character strengths that define the virtues actually needed to meet some criteria as well. And so one, they needed to be stable across time and context, meaning a virtue or character strength from the 20s needs to stand hold true today. It has to have value in its own right, even in the absence of some specific outcome. So even in the absence of context, it still needs to stand on its own. It has to positively be recognized and valued by most cultures, right? And it has to be something that you want to instill in future generations, your children, and so forth. So you can classify your strengths, these strengths that actually support the virtues, into 3 areas. And the first area is called your signature strength. The second is called your middle, and your third is your phasic strength. And signature strength is kind of what it sounds like. It's your signature. It's who you are. It's how people know you. Your middle strengths are those that they fall below the signature strengths, but you just use them less often. It doesn't mean that you don't use them at all. And then there's the last category, which is called phasic strength. If you know anything about engineering or electrical engineering or communications, phasic just means something goes in and out of phase. Excuse me real quick. Yeah, my voice is, I'm losing my voice. So phasic strengths are things that come in and out of phase. You tend to use them when you need them. So it doesn't mean that you don't have a particular character strength. It just means that for some of you, it may not be your signature strength. It may not be the thing that you're always leading with. Oh, and I've got a little video for you to watch here. Let's see if it plays.
Hey guys, what's up? This is Brian. We've got another video today. This one's on how to discover and use your signature strengths. We're going to combine 2 of my favorite domains, positive psychology and virtues.
Oops.
Talk a lot about how the classic philosophers tell us that virtue is the key aspect of living with consistent happiness and flourishing and eudaimonia and all that good stuff. Well, it turns out that the positive psychologists, when they founded the movement in 2000, guys like Martin Seligman and Christopher Peterson, they went and they studied the classic wisdom texts, ranging from the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bushido Samurai Code, and all these other great books. And what they learned was they all shared about 6 common core virtues. These included wisdom, courage, love/humanity, justice, temperance, spirituality, and transcendence. And what they said was that if we want to be happy, we've got to figure out how to take these 6 core virtues and put them into action. And they identified 24, what they called signature strengths, which are essentially virtues in action. So in these 6 categories, they split them up and created 24 signature strengths, virtues in action. They include, in the wisdom bucket, we have creativity, curiosity, open-mindedness, love of learning, and wisdom. In the courage category, we have bravery, persistence, integrity, vitality. In the humanity and love section, we have love, kindness, social intelligence. In the justice bucket, we've got citizenship, fairness, leadership. In the temperance category, we have forgiveness and mercy, humility and modesty, prudence, self-regulation. And then finally, we have in the transcendence category, appreciation of beauty and excellence, gratitude, hope and optimism, humor, and spirituality. And again, 24 signature strengths. They call them virtues in action. The key, if we want to live with more happiness, is to identify our signature strengths and to use them often in our day-to-day lives. If we want more meaning, we want to use them often in service to something bigger than ourselves. Really, really powerful stuff. Again, this is what the classic Greeks told us with the concept of arete, putting virtue into action. Now, I highly recommend you take the test. Over 1 million people have taken the test at AuthenticHappiness.com. And on that page, there's a lot of stuff. Look in the middle column for the VIA survey of character strengths. I'll add this link into the little section below the video here, but AuthenticHappiness.com, take the VIA, Virtues in Action, survey of character strengths. And I recommend you reflect on these 2 questions. First, how have you engaged these strengths in the past? So think about when you've been most engaged, when you've been most happy and full of meaning in your life. My hunch is you've engaged these strengths that are yours, your top 5 out of these 24, more consistently than in other times of your life where you may not have been as happy. That's question number 1, worthy of journaling and reflection. Question number 2, how can you use these strengths that you identify more often in your life, specifically this week? Really cool stuff. Literally think about it. Well, how do you use these strengths more often? Now, my top strengths include creativity, hope and optimism, energy and enthusiasm, kindness and generosity, and wisdom and bravery. I've taken it a couple of times over the last number of years, and I literally have journaled many times. Well, how do I use my creativity more often? Well, I create videos like this and try to integrate different ideas into my teaching and my work and my life. Kindness and generosity. I find that I feel most alive when I give generously. Do all these videos for free, and we do the flexible pricing with our business and try to find more and more ways to integrate this strength into my life more consistently. Kindness and generosity. Hope and optimism. I journal often, reflect on what I want to create in my life and really maintain this optimistic perspective. It's a big thing for us. Courage and bravery, being willing to take risks and push edges and invest in places in our business that aren't guarantees and see if they work and see if we can find more cool ways to give to the world. Wisdom. If I don't do this work and teach, I don't feel anywhere near as alive as when I do these videos on a daily basis. It's so much more inspiring for me. So that's an idea of some of the ways that I use my strengths. How can you use your strengths more often this week? I'll do a whole nother video on something called the calling description at some other point. But for now, we'll wrap it up. Remember, happiness comes when you use your strengths often. Get a meaningful life as you use them in service to something bigger than yourself. Take the test, reflect on these questions, and there you go. Quick look at how to discover and use your signature strengths. Hope you enjoyed. Quick look at positive psychology, virtues in action with these strengths. Have an awesome day. I look forward to sharing more with you soon. See ya.
All right. Hope you enjoyed that. Let's get back to our little lecture here. There I am. Now, hopefully my screen isn't actually blocking your screen after doing this entire recording. Okay, out of the way. It's not. There it goes. What? All right. So I do have another video I want you to watch before we get started. I like this video because this instructor actually does this with, younger kids, and the virtues and the strength, the character strengths that actually support each one of the virtues is something that can translate whether you're a college student or you're an elementary school student like these young children. So again, it crosses multiple age barriers. You don't have to be a particular age or group or culture to actually kind of understand and appreciate these. And I want you to watch this video and look at the exercise that they do. We're going to probably do something very similar, but not exactly the same. And just look how they reflect on these character strengths and how they bring them in. There it goes. Oops.
Today's title for your journal entry is going to be My Big Fear and How I Got Over It. And then underneath that, you can write courage. I'm going to leave you alone for a few minutes.
Each year at the beginning of the year, a teacher has a choice to make about what kind of culture they're going to create and what kind of culture will be best for learning. And a culture based on students understanding themselves, understanding one another, and connecting with one another based on that respect creates a culture of collaboration, a culture of exploration, and that is the culture of learning that enhances learning during the rest of the year.
Character strengths are the keys to your heart that makes your spirit rise and allows you to do things better.
Each of us bring some primary character strengths to bear to do well in life, and we all can look to a set of characteristics that account for a lot of the reason why we have succeeded to the point where we find ourselves today.
Is there a character strength, we've been working on these character strengths so much, is there a character strength that you've begun to adopt into your family?
A teacher in Salt Lake City, Jay Sharp, who's just doing a phenomenal job in building a learning environment based on teaching character strengths.
Before character strengths came into my life, the best way I can put my teaching style was I was winging it, trying to make a connection through relationship in my classroom to the students. I was always looking for a way to educate in a more child-centered way.
Love of learning.
Well, now that kind of blows me away, and knowing you in the way that I do, but you're surprised that you have as much love of learning as you have learned that you have, right?
The strengths that really feel about me are perspective and open-mindedness. I like to think before I do it, and I like to look at things a different way.
I am perseverance. I am social intelligence. I pretend that I rule all emotions. I feel what people's feelings are. I touch people's feelings.
They are a wonderful way for me to ask the question about how we will be with each other that year. What kind of a year do we want to create with each other? What are our expectations, if any? What are our fears about the year? And we can start right there and begin to ask the kids to tell me what their interpretation is through vocabulary at first. I think it's a wonderful first vocabulary list of the year. Then you can go to the rest of your core curriculum, and substitute the other vocabulary you need to do. I found it invaluable in language arts and social studies, and I'm working on ways to apply it.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that you were actually able to.
And find that I've even stretched it to be able to do that.
When they are incorporating the character strengths with the topics of learning in school, it's building their confidence, and I think they take more pride in the work that they do, and they try harder.
It's helped me with my math because all I thought about math was it was just a bunch of hard problems that you had to do. But now that I've learned perspective, I look at it, math, a different way, that you can always ask for help and you can always partner up with a person to help you with math, and you can always get better.
I think my top goals are for each one of us to be more content, happy with where we have come to right now. That would be number one. My second goal would be that we become open-minded about allowing others' perspectives into our lives. My third goal would be to have everyone in my room begin to understand how amazing it feels to overcome a fear, and that something you once feared can become something that you have not just conquered, but incorporated into your life. And my fourth, and maybe really even my first, is to have fun and to show the lightness of learning, the incredible lightness of being that learning brings into your life, and to instill that into the kids so that they're able to walk through their lives now being really, truly lifelong learners. We have adopted, if you will, second graders, and each one of my kids is mentoring a second grader, not only with the character strengths, but also other subject matter in math and science, and they are getting the second graders to begin to use the language of the character strings, especially the simpler ones on the second grade level. They have begun to get them to use words of kindness and fairness and love, and even love of learning, the things that they've loved learning so far.
With the different strengths that the children offer in a classroom, they can appreciate each other more. And instead of being critical or teasing or hurtful behavior toward each other, I think that they're able to build each other up more and to see maybe something that's a little different or quirky from themselves as that's something that can be added to the classroom, or that can be a benefit to the other people around them.
This is really important for setting up the classroom, to getting a community built with your children. And it's really wonderful to see what each of the groups can contribute and give to each other. They learn from each other. And I was really amazed at the conversation that goes on between the...
Ooh. Sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I was trying to raise the volume. Let's go back to where she was at, right there. It's just, I don't hear it very well here. The fan for the laptop is moving, it's turning on and off. I'm wondering how well you're hearing
the
it.
conversation that goes on between the two age groups.
Their mantra is learn it, do it, teach it, know it. And so even if they're only thinking about themselves in their relationship with their mentorship role, this is a way for them to verbalize some strategy they've already learned, and to figure out how to teach it to somebody else. And as soon as they do that, they find out that they know it in different ways.
It's built their confidence. I can see that they stand up straighter. They take a little bit more pride in their work. They think a little bit more before they act. So it's reinforcing the things that I try to teach her at home.
Character strings are the foundation for a successful life. I see them as a tree that has branches and roots. And the strength of the tree, it's fed by its roots of character, and it branches out into the world to share its character, its leaves, and its seeds with the rest of the world. So they're a foundation to the way that we live our entire lives.
I understand the hunger of children without any food. I want the world to be in peace. I try to take care of everyone in my path. I hope that someday everyone will get along. I am citizenship.
Okay, I always hate to just abruptly turn something off when it's beautiful music like this, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it just for the sake of the video. Okay, let's do this. Let's get back to our lecture. Alrighty. So what I want you to get from that is, if these young kids can actually embrace this and understand this and look at perspective, I'm sure that you all can do the same as well, not just for yourself, but when you teach it to others. All right, so we're going to go through the next couple of slides looking at each one of the virtues each one of the 6 virtues, and then we're going to break them down a little bit just to give you a preview of the character strengths that make up each one of the 6 virtues. And the first one we want to discuss is wisdom, and knowledge. So wisdom and knowledge, I have the character strengths laid out right there for you. Creativity, curiosity, judgment, love of learning, perspective. I'm hoping all of you have the love of learning, especially if you're in my class, right? But a lot of the other character strengths go with it: creativity, curiosity. I can't imagine having love of learning without having curiosity. And judgment, not in the negative way that we look at the word judgment, but as in giving constructive feedback and that type of judgment. So let's talk about each one of these a little bit in more detail. So creativity, what is that? And that deals with originality and ingenuity. I'll discuss these in more detail when we talk about personality traits, especially the big 5, right? But creativity is thinking of novel, productive ways to conceptualize and do things. This includes people like artists whose achievement is just not limited to what they see. There's a saying that I really enjoy. I may have used it in this class already. And it goes like, scientists see the world as it is. And that's just their job. That's who they are. As where artists see the world the way it could be. And I think that's just beautiful. There's also one more that I add to it, and that's engineers make it happen, right? So we have the scientists, we have the artists, then we have the engineer who sort of takes all that and creates everything that we see here today. But we can't do it without, I'm an engineer, we can't do it without all of y'all. All right, I won't spend too much time on that. Let's go to the next one. So curiosity, right? These all kind of go hand in hand with wisdom and knowledge. So what do we mean when we talk about curiosity? You have to have an interest in things, right? And ideas, and just in general. You have to be novelty seeking, and you have to have a high degree of openness, right? Which is one of the character traits personality traits for the big 5. We'll mention that a little later. But this is a person who likes to take an interest in ongoing experience for its own sake, finding subjects and topics fascinating, exploring and discovering. And one thing I'm really disappointed in is that students don't get a chance to be curious anymore. They don't get a chance to take courses just for the sake of taking courses. There was a time when you could do that and you could find yourself, I guess, if you want to put it that way. The problem is some people are taking way too long to find themselves, and they're just making a career of being a student. But there has to be some time when you're out in college and you see a course that may not have anything to do with the path that you want to get into. Maybe if you're an artist and you decide to take an architecture class or an engineering class for whatever reason, or a math class, and you think it's not required in my degree, but I really want to learn math. I want to learn geometry. I want to use the postulates from geometry to create new art and try to see the universe for what it is through geometry and trigonometry. You can't do that anymore because we're trying to get students in and out of university or colleges as fast as possible. And I just think that's a big, I'm just very disappointed that we're overlooking the whole reason why you're in college. So if you have the opportunity to take an elective that may be outside of your comfort zone, maybe outside of your degree path, by all means, do it. When someone questions you why you're doing something like that, just don't worry about what they think. All right, which brings me to my next point, which is judgment. Right. So when we talk about judgment, we don't mean the judgment that you might be familiar with on Twitter and the other social media sites where people are hypercritical, negative on anything you say or do. Right. When I say judgment, I mean more like critical thinking, right? Open-mindedness. So thinking things through, examining them from all sides, not jumping to conclusions, being able to change one's mind in light of evidence. right? So that's what I mean by judgment. These are things that you just have to practice. The other thing is love of learning. I mentioned earlier, I personally don't think you can have love of learning and not have curiosity as well. They kind of go hand in hand, but it explains why they're under this particular virtue, right? So what do we mean by love of learning? We want you, at least I think most faculty who are in tune with this type of virtue, and they try to instill this virtue in students, is that we want you to be lifetime learners, as you heard on the video. So a lifetime learner is someone whose signature virtue is, or signature strength comes from wisdom and knowledge. So your love of learning means you love to master new skills, new topics, bodies of knowledge related to curiosity, but you go beyond that to describe, it describes like a tendency to just learn anything and everything. So you may decide to learn Russian, even though you have no immediate plans to go to a Russian speaking country. But for some reason that interests you, the language, the structure, or something about it interests you, and you want to learn just for the sake of learning. And the last strength here that we're going to talk about in wisdom and knowledge is perspective. And perspective goes along with wisdom, as you heard one of the young children talking about in the video. So this is just being able to provide wise counsel to others, having ways of looking at the world that makes sense to oneself and to other people. So I'm sure there's somebody in your group of friends who tends to be more self-reflective, and they're also more empathic, which means that they tend to, they're confused with people who overthink and they don't rush to action, but they're actually very empathic, and they take other people's perspectives into play. And these are the people in your group, probably your group of friends, who tends to have wise counsel, right? When something goes wrong, they say something, you tend to want to hear what they have to say. You trust their opinion. So perspective, wisdom, knowledge. So I hope you enjoyed that virtue. Let's go ahead and go to, to the next virtue. All right, so the next virtue we're going to talk about is justice. And justice has 3 character strengths under this virtue, right? And they are teamwork, fairness, and leadership. And so when I say teamwork, most of you are going to be working in groups. So teamwork could be anything from a small group in class. It could also be something such as a larger group in your neighborhood, your area of town, your city. So it gets larger and larger, or it can be as small as doing something very unique with a very small group of people. But it includes being a good citizen. It includes becoming a good citizen, having social responsibility, and having loyalty to not just another individual, but a group of people that obviously is not, it's not you, but it's somebody else, right? And so you heard one of the young children there in the video talking about their citizenship. This is what they were talking about, justice. So in class or throughout college, you're gonna learn how to practice good citizenship, good social responsibility, good loyalty. I think we've lost the values of education to some extent, and I hate to be negative here, but hopefully I'm adding this back to your perspective, where you look at college and you think it's something where you go get this degree and you go get this job, you go make a lot of money or whatever money, and you find some kind of happiness for yourself. That's only part of the reason why you are in college. And if no one's actually told you the other reason that you go to a college or you go to university is that you learn to work with other people outside your profession, other people outside your interests, and it makes you a better citizen. So with that said, going to a college, going to university, getting your bachelor's degree or associate's degree if you're at a community college, one of the main things that you should be getting out of it is being a better citizen for the community. And I think that tends to get lost now in a lot of the educational rhetoric that's being put out by larger groups, where they're mostly focused on numbers and how many people graduate in grades and attendance and all these other kind of things. But the whole thing is you're learning how to be a better citizen, right? So working well as a member of a group or a team, being loyal to the group, doing your share, doing your part for a greater cause. Your part may be a small piece of a project. Your part when you graduate may be a larger piece for the community. So yeah, teamwork. So I'll go ahead and stop with that one. Let's get into fairness, which is another character strength, for justice. And this one, I think it's intuitive. I think most of you were probably thinking something along this lines, fairness. It's treating all people the same according to notions of fairness and justice, not letting your personal feelings or your personal bias decisions about others get in the way of actually giving fair chance and fair opportunity. And there's no way around it. Everybody has personal bias. It's normal. That's all I'm going to say. And what you need to understand while you're going through college is not that you're going to come here and have no bias and you're going to come out of college being just perfectly, a beautiful utopian individual. What you're going to learn is which of these strengths you have a better handle on and which ones you don't, which ones you practice more on a regular basis, which ones you don't. Everybody has this whole array of strengths that we're going to be talking about in this presentation. And it's your responsibility to look at where you may have some weaknesses and work on this. So, and no one's going to be perfect. No one has that flat line of every single strength is at maximum potential. It's just not true. It just doesn't happen that way. So you can have someone who's great at fairness, but really bad at teamwork within the same, virtue of justice. So what I'm saying is don't try to be that perfect individual because it doesn't exist. And if someone sort of guilts you into saying that you have a weakness in any of these character strengths, which leads to maybe a flaw in any of these justice and any of these virtues, just look at it as an opportunity to grow and don't take it personal, even if they mean it personally or they're trying to be negative. And the last one we're going to talk about is called leadership. So in leadership, which is one of our outcomes here in this program, it's encouraging a group of which you're a member to get things done. And you want to maintain good relations within that group, organizing, implementing group activities. So leadership, I've said this before, I'm not sure if everyone believes this, but you can't be a leader unless you have a group of people to lead. So think about the last time when maybe you're not the usual leader in your group of friends, but maybe where you had an idea and they relied on you to get everyone through that evening or through that day or through that activity because it was something that you knew well and you knew better than others, and you were practicing leadership under that particular activity. So it may not be a strength that's your signature strength. In other words, it's not the thing that you try to do all the time. There are people who always try to be the leader in every situation, but a good leader knows when to step back and let others take lead because, again, like we said before, you're not perfect at everything. I'm not perfect at everything. So what I try to do is look at the people that I'm with, look at the team that I'm with. If I'm the one who's actually going to be making those decisions and giving everyone else the opportunity to lead at different points of the whole group moves as one. And that's basically leadership in a nutshell, right? But all this goes under justice. Okay, the next one is transcendence. Not like the movie Transcendence, right? So we have 5 character strengths under the virtue of transcendence, and they are appreciation of beauty and excellence, gratitude, hope, spirituality, and humor. So let's get into each one of these in a little bit more detail. So the first one, appreciation of beauty and excellence, right? This is when and this happens to everybody. I'm sure it happens to everybody. When you're in awe of something, when you look at something and you're in wonder of it, wow, what is like? It makes you think about it more. It elevates a subject or elevates something that in a way you didn't see it before. So it's just basically noticing, appreciating beauty, excellence, a skilled performance or something from nature, art, mathematics, science to any everyday experience. Personally, I like geometry. I like trigonometry. I see the beauty in geometry. I love the postulates for geometry. They're so simple. They're as simple as can be, and they describe a mathematical concept that we have to believe to be true because there's no other way of disproving it, right? And so these are these basic postulates, but each one describes some geometrical shape that that within itself has to be true. And I like looking at these postulates. You should go look them up. And once you start mixing one or two postulates together, you get so many different variations of art based on two simple definitions of geometry. Even one definition of geometry can be drawn out in so many different ways that you have almost an infinite, return on art and geometry. So I recommend definitely. I'm just promoting mathematics here, specific to geometry, for you all to go read some of the postulates, start drawing them out as you read them, and then get a group of friends. And all of you, we're in college. So get a group of friends, everyone read the same postulate, everyone draw what the postulate is describing, and look at the differences of what comes out on your sheet of paper. But each one of them, if you've done it correctly, are all mathematically correct. But it's some other beautiful art from a different perspective. I think the universe is like that. I think the universe is just full of postulates and so many different variations that are all true, but they look different to us. But it's really one postulate or two postulates from all these different angles. It just looks like something different. It's like, no, that's actually the same postulate, and that holds true to this one thing. But it's just the universe drew it in so many different perspectives. All right, next one is gratitude. I'm not going to, I talk too much. Gratitude. So being aware of and thankful for good things that happen and taking time to express thanks. This is something that I really try to practice, right? So I try to be extremely grateful, and when someone does something, I make sure I say it right away that I'm grateful for what they've done, even if it's a little thing. Sometimes people think it's a little odd that I may be thanking them for a cookie. It's like, he seems to be too excited about this cookie. But it's just practicing this character strength of being grateful for things. Some people, you'll come off a little weird if you do too much, but it's about you. You're practicing for you, not for anybody else, right? And it never hurts anybody. Okay, the next one is hope. We talk about hope. And what is hope, right? So some synonyms for hope we could say are optimism. You must have somebody in your life that's very optimistic. It's really hard to get them to think negatively about something. They're future-minded, so they're always thinking about the future. They're future-oriented. These are people who are full of hope, right? They're the kind of people who expect the best in the future, and working to achieve it is their goal. So believing that a good future is something that can be brought about. So they don't look at it as something like, oh, it's hopeless, why even try? Even in the most dim situations, they see the good in it. My sister was like this. She was amazing. She could have, one time she had gotten a divorce, and she finally got her own car. And it was this, I don't want to say junk, but it really was junk. It was a junk car, and it was different colors. It's like a little Datsun, or you probably don't even know what that car is. But it was primered on one side, had all different colors, like, the panels were all different colors and everything. But she was so happy. And when she drove up in the driveway, and her life was starting new, because she finally got rid of somebody who was bad for her. Her attitude was just, life is great and starting now. And she had this horrible car. At the time, I didn't think it was a bad car. I saw it and I was like, wow, it's the best car I've ever seen. And when I think back, it's like, oh, wow, it was like a piece of junk. But the way she saw it was amazing. And so she was always like that. And yeah, so you might know someone like that. It could be the worst situation possible, but they light up the entire room. They light up the entire park, just whatever, wherever they're at. So I hope that you have a friend or a brother or sister like that. Okay, the next one is spirituality. And by spirituality, I don't mean religion per se, but if you have faith in something, if you feel like you have a higher purpose, and that's where spirituality comes from. It doesn't necessarily have to be a deity or something like that. I personally am a religious person, so that's for me, but for you, it could be something else. So what it does, it gives you these coherent beliefs about a higher purpose, the meaning of the universe. If that's your thing, I also like to look at the stars and try to look at the meaning of the universe and figure out, well, not that I would figure it out, but that I would actually, get some inkling, a little spark of something where I could understand something greater than myself. So we're always looking for that higher purpose. But it's like you want to know where you fit in with the larger scheme of things. And this means that you have to have some beliefs about the meaning of life that shape and conduct your everyday life. So most people have this. I think almost everybody has this. Even people who claim not to be spiritual or not to be religious or anything like that. They tend to have something that gives them a higher purpose. And so, yeah. The last one is humor, right? And being playful. Sometimes in class, you'll see me joke around. I tend to think that humor is a great way to alleviate stress. And it actually helps to induce a learning environment for all of y'all. Plus, I like to relax. I don't like stress. So I've had plenty of stress in my life, and I've had more than a lifetime's worth. If I get any more, I'm fine with it. But if there's anything I can do to actually alleviate stress, I will. And so that just means being playful. Not everyone can do this. Some people are they can't be playful. But if you're the kind of person who likes to laugh, you like to tease others, not pranking in a bad way, but just, maybe a little joke here or there to get someone to smile. That's being humorous, right? Bringing smiles to other people, seeing the light side of things. And when I think of humor, I think of Robin Williams, Jim Carrey, some of these, Steve Martin, these great comedians who make fools of themselves to bring someone else joy. So if there's like a favorite comedian of yours and they go to the point of being a jester, being a fool to get you to laugh, those are awesome people. They're amazing people, right? They're helping transcend your life by trying to, show you the light side of things. Okay, we are now on courage. And courage was something that Joaquin Phoenix's character said in the movie earlier. He says, well, courage, not in the way that but there are other forms of courage, maybe not in the battlefield. And he's correct. He's true. And there are lots of forms of courage other than being out in the battlefield. There could be the courage of standing up to those closest to you, saying, no, we shouldn't fight, or we shouldn't do this, or we shouldn't do that. Something that sort of puts you in a humble or I wouldn't say a weaker point, but where you're putting yourself at risk. And if you're willing to do that, to stand up for something, a value, or to protect someone physically, that's courage. And so what makes up courage? What are the strengths that make up the virtue of courage? And we have 4 characteristic strengths here: bravery, zest, perseverance, and honesty. So I know I'm leaning, I tend to lean when I talk, so I don't know if I ever get out of frame here. And bravery, right? Another word for bravery is valor. So this means that you don't shrink from threats, from challenges. When something's difficult or when you experience pain, you speak up for what's right and you act on convictions, even if there's opposition. This includes physical bravery, but it's not limited to physical bravery. So a good example, if some of you know the movie Harry Potter, excuse me, so in the movie Harry Potter, they get points for being brave and so forth. But there's the one friend of theirs who he gets a lot more points for I can't remember Harry Potter too well, but Gryffindor? I don't remember. Anyway, he gets praised for having valor and bravery for standing up to his friends, which is a lot harder to do to stand up to the people you care about because you have a lot more to lose. It's easy to speak up to someone who you don't care about, but it's harder to speak up to those that you do care about because you don't want to tarnish or ruin anything. But you do it because it's what you believe. You'll say things because it's you feel it's right, it's your conviction, even if you risk losing their friendship or losing their respect. But it's bravery. It's bravery in a different way. Okay, so the next one is zest, right? And so again, synonyms for zest: vitality, that was mentioned in the video, enthusiasm, vigor, energy. I don't know if I look like I have lots of zest right now. I may not sound like I have a lot of zest because of my voice. I'm kind of losing my voice. I actually like my voice like this. I hope I keep it. So this means that you approach life with excitement, energy, not doing things halfway or half-heartedly, living life as an adventure, feeling alive and activated. I can tell you right now, a lot of you have zest for turning in your homework on time, because I do get a lot of the emails when something doesn't go right and you're sent in and you're very, enthusiastic and energized, and you're telling me, I'm trying to do this. Can I email it to you? It's not working. I don't see the link, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, but I'm getting a lot of those. So if I don't reply back right away, it's because there's something, and I'll tell you, have you tried this? Have you looked at that? And some people actually figure it out. Some don't. But I do appreciate the zest. Sorry for that high pitch there. I do appreciate the zest and enthusiasm. That is good stuff here for developing courage and speaking up. Don't ever feel that you can't speak up because I'm an instructor or professor and you're a student. The best time to speak up, best time to show and practice courage. Okay, the next one we're going to talk about is perseverance. You heard perseverance. You may not know what perseverance is, so that's why I like doing the synonyms. So perseverance is persistence, right? Industriousness. So this is finishing what you start. So you come to college, you've got perseverance, you're going to finish it. You're going to go and get that bachelor's degree. This means being persistent in some kind of course of action, even in spite of obstacles. So taking pleasure in completing the task. So obstacles to you aren't things that get in the way. They are the way. So it just means I just have to get over that hill. If you think about the hurdles that runners, the hurdle runner jumpers. If you're the kind of person who shies away from obstacles, you'll get to the first hurdle and you'll stop. As where those runners say, I'm going to jump it. I'm going to jump the next one. And the next one's higher. I'm going to jump that too. And it is the way to get to where you want to go. It has the finish line. Perseverance. Right? And the next one is honesty. Again, I'm going to use some good synonyms. Honesty is being authentic, having some integrity. So speaking the truth, but more broadly presenting yourself in a genuine way, acting in some sincere way where you mean what you say. Being without pretense. You're not pretending to be caring. You actually care. There's a clinical psychologist who's pretty famous. I won't say his name here, but the man almost goes into tears when he talks about people and how he tries to help them, and they fail or they fall short. I mean, he really, really cares. It's obvious he has no problem showing that, and that's inspiring. It should be inspiring to a lot of people. But again, someone who's honest, they're authentic, they have integrity, they take responsibility for all their actions, and not just that, for their feelings as well. So you don't say things like, well, you made me feel like this, or you did this to me, that's why I did that back. No, it doesn't matter what you did or didn't do. It doesn't matter how you didn't make me feel anyway. People can't make you feel anyway. So it's like, I took responsibility. If I did something wrong, if I yelled at you, or if I said something terrible to you, and even though you said something terrible to me, and I did it out of I'll just say anger, that's on me. So someone who's honest, they're authentic, they take responsibility for that, and they'll say, I messed up too. I shouldn't have. It doesn't matter who went first. Whatever. It doesn't matter who threw the first punch. If I threw a punch, that's on me as well. So, All right. The next one is temperance. So the 4 character strengths for temperance are forgiveness, humility, prudence, and self-regulation. Now, these, especially prudence, tends to be lower on the average test. When you take your virtues test, it tends to score a lot lower for a lot of people. Humility as well. It doesn't mean that they're not important. It just take a lot of people need to work on these. So when I mean forgiveness, I mean mercy. Have you ever been in a situation where you could have given mercy? It could have been an argument or something, even if you were right, but someone was defeated, say mentally, but you kept going, and you didn't have any forgiveness. You didn't have any mercy. You need to practice that. So it means forgiving those who've done wrong, accepting shortcomings of others, giving people a second chance, not being vengeful. I like to tell people that forgive everyone for everything. It's easier said than done, but forgive everyone for everything, and especially those people who are closest to you. We tend not to forgive the people closest to us because when they do something that maybe is contrary to what we believe or our values, we tend to be hurt more, and it does affect you more. And for some reason, not for some reason, it makes sense that it is more of an infliction, and you don't tend to forgive those people that are closest to you as well as you would forgive some stranger or somebody. And I understand the reason why someone close to you, if they did something, why it would be more hurtful. But practice being more forgiving to those actually closest to you. It's not without merit, I would say, right? Do something. In the Bible, it does say something like, if you've done things for your brothers, what have you done more than others? Don't even thieves do that or something. And while that's true, right? Forgiving your family seems to be like, oh, that's just kind of a given. Forgive others as well. It just seems that we tend to hold the people closest to us to some higher standard, and we can be very mean, very strict with the people closest to us. All right. It brings the next one is humility. Right. Humility. Let's talk about modesty. So letting one's accomplishments speak for themselves, not regarding oneself as more special than one is. I'm working on this. A lot of times I've had to throw out my credentials because I had needed to get people to understand and listen to my advice, right? So they would understand that I'm coming from a place of experience, and that way we can follow through on some kind of action that's going to, get us the outcome that we want. There's a fine line between doing that and then just kind of like bragging about all your credentials wherever you go. So one of the first things I did was on my professional profiles, like, again, I'm not looking for a job. If you are, I can understand why you're going to put all your certificates and all your credentials up there in the top line. I took mine off. And that's just my way of practicing humility. So I don't want to be the kind of person who's always just kind of throwing other things about myself that are not really, they don't say all about me. If you want to know me, get to know me. And those accomplishments or anything I've done are just things that I use to make a living, and that's it, right? But as your professor, I want you to get to know me. I want to be able to impart something on you. I want you to value what I have to say, not because of some credential I have, but because what you're listening to me right now and you're thinking, yeah, I think that makes sense to me. Dismiss any credential I have. Forget it. Because what I'm doing, my actions are speaking for themselves. The next one is prudence, right? So prudence just means that you're careful, you're cautious. I think a lot of people are careful and cautious, or they get stereotyped in kind of a bad way. But people who are very prudent, and that's their signature strength, we need people like that for certain types of jobs. So it just means that you're careful about your choices. You don't take undue risk. It's not saying that you don't do anything that you may have regretted. Everyone does things that they regret, or they do things that may have not come out well. They said, I shouldn't have done that. It just means that more so than not, you take a lot of those things into consideration. I might be a little bit prudent, but I do a lot of stuff that gets me in trouble, but I've thought it through. And so when I do something and I know it's going to get me in trouble, I think, well, I knew that was going to happen, but I did think it through, and I was willing to accept the consequences for my actions. So just being prudent doesn't mean that you don't take risk, in other words. And I always tell students that if you're going to break a rule, or if you're going to break a law, if you're going to do something that you really feel your conviction moves you to do, keep going all the way through, think it all the way through, think of the consequences, and say, okay, now if this happens, will I be okay with that? Will I accept those consequences? And if the answer is yes, you'll have my support. Okay. And the last one here is self-regulation. So that just means self-control. So regulating what you feel, what you do, being disciplined, controlling your appetites. I don't mean just like your hunger type of appetites, even though that is a good type of self-regulation, but controlling your emotions as well. So there's another saying that I like, and it's a wise man or a wise person will regulate their desires, and a fool is a slave to them. So some people just want the good stuff. They drink too much. They do this too much because they just want. And they can't stop themselves at a certain point. They want more and more until they just kind of destroy themselves. As where someone who's wise knows how to control their appetites, knows how to control their desires, not to be a slave to them. So there's nothing wrong with wanting, or whatever. If you like to drink a beer, I'm not like anyone thinks drinking beer is bad, but let's say we were in that time, and you say, you know what, I'm gonna drink a beer, and you may have people who are very prudent, and they're gonna be like, no, don't drink beer. Even one beer is gonna do this or do that, whatever. And you're like, well, I'm gonna drink one. I like the way this tastes, and it relaxes me, and I only drink one, and I get to work, or I do this, or I go cut the yard or something. And you know how to self-regulate yourself. You know how to ration and do those kinds of things. So yeah. All right. The next one is humanity. I think I'm on number 6 already. I think I am on number. I didn't count them. I don't have these in any order. So the 3 character strengths that fall into humanity are, I'm doing it again. I'm leaning so far that I'm getting out of frame of the camera. So the 3 character strengths are social intelligence, kindness, and love. So real quick, I'm going to get off on the side topic. I know I have a little bit of an accent, and Texas accent with a Spanish accent. So it's like I have this mix of an accent, which is kind of unique to being down here. And then kind of losing your voice, and then sounding like John Wick, No, I don't sound like John Wick. But I know that you might have a hard time listening to me and hearing me right now. But I do understand what you're going through right now, listening to me. So let's just get started and get this lecture over with. And just listen to it again if you need to understand what I said. So social intelligence or emotional intelligence, personal intelligence. This is relatively new. Emotional intelligence is still up in the air as far as whether it's a valid metric for determining social intelligence. Right now, we don't have, or there aren't any good studies that actually measure or can measure repeatedly what emotional intelligence is. But we're using this term a lot. There's something to it. We just haven't been able to dissect it very, very well. But we have been using personal intelligence. And so this is one component of social intelligence, right, that leads to humanity, the virtue of humanity. And that just means being aware of the motives and feelings of other people and yourself, knowing what to do, how to fit into different social situations, and knowing what makes other people tick. And I don't mean, in this, I do have to give you some disclaimers, I guess. I don't mean that if you're from the city, and I'm just going to use these large stereotypes, forgive me. Let's say you're from the big city and you go out to, in Texas, we got a lot of country land out there. We got a lot of cowboys out there, and they do, they speak differently. They have a twang, that Texas twang. And you go out there and you start doing that. You start mimicking that. That's not what I mean by fitting into different social situations, right? Don't go out there and start saying, hey, y'all gonna be, whatever the thing is. That's just it's a little bit of it's what's the word? I'll just say it's a little disrespectful when you do that to people. You're belittling their culture by doing that. But what I mean by fitting into different social situations is if you're from the big city and you drive a car, and let's say you're out in the country and a big ranch, you just can't drive a car wherever you want to go out there. And it might involve riding a four-wheeler or getting on a horse or doing other things that you're not used to. Um, and it may mean getting up at 4:30 in the morning to work because daylight is important for people who work outside in a ranch where there's no street lights. You have to adapt to the situation. That's what I mean about adapting to social situations and all the kinds of things like that. You may work in a place where people just throw out curse words, and that just seems to be the normal language. Nothing wrong with that. It's good language, powerful language, gets the point across in a really good way. But you may end up being in a place where that kind of language is not used very often, and it's kind of looked at as if you're insulting someone or you're being very offensive. So you may want to adapt to that social situation and tone it down and use the curse words sparingly. Okay, so the next part of humanity is kindness, and this is looking at things like generosity, being nurturing, caring, compassionate, being altruistic, being loving, and just overall being nice. Right now, I know these are very controversial depending on who you talk to, because I've had discussions with anthropologists who look at humankind and the development of humanity from, depending on their specialty, from genetic anthropologists, cultural anthropologists, all of you. And at least the ones I've talked to, they say things like, well, altruism isn't real. There's no such thing as altruism. No one does anything for pure altruistic reasons. There's always some give and take. And so there's all these fine lines with these kinds of things. So when we talk about humanity, you might get a lot of controversy or controversy, as the British say, with some of these ideas, these concepts, these character strengths. So again, a lot of this stuff is not concrete, but psychologists are doing their best to kind of narrow them down. And basically what it means, though, if you don't want to put kindness into any one of these other like slots, like being altruistic, it's just helping others and taking care of them, doing favors and good deeds. So it's always the rule is do for others and don't expect anything in return, that kind of stuff. But it's really hard for a lot of people to do something and not sometimes wish like, oh, I did all this for this person. Maybe they'll, like, when you need help, maybe they'll help me because of that. It's normal. So it's, in that sense, there's nothing wrong with that. So just don't hold yourself to such an ideal standard that the act of kindness brings you more stress than anything else, when it should bring you more meaning in your life. And again, we're going to talk about love now. We haven't talked about love languages, but we will. But love, right? So it's just valuing, close relationships with others, in particular those in which sharing and caring are reciprocated. So you care for someone, they care for you back. You do things for people. You don't expect anything back, but they also reciprocate because they kind of have a feeling for you as well. Now, when I say love, I don't mean love as in the intimate sense, or like in adult relationships, but love in the simplest sense, where two individuals or a group of individuals just do for each other because they want to see the other person happy, and everyone else reciprocates. Think about your closest friends, where you went out of your way to help them with something if they needed something. And when you were in the bind, they would be there. You didn't have to ask. That's because they want to see you. They don't want to see you in torment. So yeah, valuing close relationships with others, an individual or a group of people. So those who, again, are who reciprocate what you give out. Okay, And I do want to just end this presentation by thanking you for your time. And I do want to cover these last two columns of information about looking at how we talk about virtues, how we teach virtues. So what you're going to see in traditional textbooks, and what you're going to see in traditional, I don't want to call them continuing education, but these professional developments that you'll see at your workplace that tend to still focus on virtues and character components of virtues by a very small subset. So they may say, we're going to focus on these three character strengths of this particular virtue, or character strength of three different virtues. And it's very prescriptive. And you focus on that, and they want you to be, or to exemplify these particular virtues. We do it in college all the time. We do it in university all the time, where we look at values, and we have 5 or 6 values that maybe some larger organization says is important, like integrity and data informed and all these other kinds of not virtues, but what they'll consider values. And the organization will follow those because it somehow leads and feeds into the larger mission and vision of the organization. That's the traditional prescriptive, all or nothing kind of teaching of virtues. The modern way of looking at personality traits, like looking at the Big Five versus looking at the Myers-Briggs, or looking at virtues, what we're talking about here today, is looking at it multidimensional. So that means that when you look at something, you're not looking at it as just these limited, 2 or 3 variables of whether something exists or doesn't exist, but you're looking at this from a multidimensional perspective, where we have 24 character strengths that we didn't actually, get into too much detail in this presentation, but at least you know of them, and that everyone exhibits all 24 character strengths of these virtues, which means you do simplify some of these virtues, some more than others. And so it tends to be more of this constellation strength. Your constellation of your strengths looks different from someone else's constellation of strengths, but you all exhibit them to some extent. And that's kind of what I want you to get from this in the classroom. So if you go to work and they do give you some kind of training on virtues and they do limit them to just a few, just understand that that is not defining of who you are or who everyone is. They may have just picked those because it might be something that they feel aligns very well with the company's vision or mission, and they can kind of help and promote those particular, component strengths of some particular virtues, but they don't define you. Anything that sort of narrows you down is like the opposite way to go. It's good for work, but it's not good for like a full happy life. And that's kind of what I want to end with this particular slide. The virtues, teaching virtues to other individuals. If you want to talk about this with other people, don't narrow people down to a particular column or a particular, set of strengths within a particular virtue. Understand that everyone exhibits all of these strengths, and they just have a different level of one or the other. You may have a particular signature strength that's very strong in one area, and whoever your friend is, significant other, may have it in a different area, and you look at each other and you think, wow, we're opposite. No, not really. You're not opposite. There's no such thing as opposite when you're looking at multidimensionality. So that's all. I'm beating this one to death. I never want you to come out of one of these lectures thinking, oh no, that's my personality. This is what I am. It's not like astrology where it's like you have these characteristics and that characteristic, and they're interesting to read. But the thing is with astrology is like they kind of blanket and they parse the characteristics across all the signs. And the truth is that you exhibit all of them. Just you have some signature traits that are you exemplify more than others. And when they align, you think, wow, that astrology is me. You experience them all. You can be the very emotional, crying Pisces, I think, and you can be the very logical, reserved, quiet, reflective Virgo. You have those abilities. You just exemplify one or the other. So that's all. And hopefully I didn't talk you too much to bore you from this subject. I love this subject, and I'm out of the camera range right there. And I'm going to go ahead and stop, check the recording, make sure that you actually were able to see the PowerPoint slide and you were able to hear me. And I'm going to have some exercises for us to do on virtues and character traits. Again, love these topics. Love them. Let me stop recording now. Stop. Oops. Stop recording.